This story was often repeated at this season by Rabbi Ernst Lorge of blessed memory, who served for many years here in the Chicago area. About Jewish folktales more generally, his grandson, Rabbi Ari Lorge, recently said this: "Though they are not Midrash or Talmud or Torah, Jewish folktales are not children's stories." I just love what he says next. No, Jewish folktales are not children's stories, even though children's hearts are often the ones most open to the truths of their teachings. This folktale offers an important message for all of us to consider, especially here at the tail end of the High Holy Day season. See, in a quiet and sleepy village somewhere in Eastern Europe, there was a ruin of a synagogue. Today, birds and squirrels live in its eaves and its walls, and the roof is mostly falling in, exposing the interior of the sanctuary to the weather and to nature. The floors have seen so many steps and shuffles and hakafot that they are worn too. In some places, they're worn all the way down to the earth beneath. Plants and weeds grow in the floor, and vines cover the Aron HaKodesh, the Holy Ark, where once the Torah scrolls were kept. And the stone steps that lead up to the entrance of this synagogue are cracked, and all around the building, trees and grass grow wild. It's not surprising, therefore, that few come to the synagogue today. But those who do often come when it's raining, when you can hear the water drip, drip, dripping through the roof into the sanctuary, and when it looks as if the building is crying. Some say this is why the synagogue is called the Weeping Synagogue. But the locals know better. They know that that is not really the origin of its moniker. If you ask them, they'll tell you that it's called the Weeping Synagogue because if you go there at night or really early in the morning, you can actually hear the sound of weeping. You can hear the building itself crying for what was and what could have been. Before the synagogue was abandoned, it stood tall and it stood proud. The synagogue was once frequented by all of the villagers. But one man alone was there day in and day out. It was their pious rabbi. He studied all day and into the night too. Yes, he studied Talmud and Torah and commentaries and Midrash and mysticism day in and day out. Even when everyone else in the village was sleeping, he was still there, awake and hunched over his books, reading by candlelight. The rabbi had no house, no family, and no friends. He didn't really busy himself with the goings-on of anyone else in the village. No, this rabbi wasn't the community rabbi. His life was his study, and his study was his prayer. He spent all of his time busying himself with the secrets of our tradition. One night at the turn of midnight, a most holy hour, as he sat at the table in the synagogue studying scriptures, the ark began to glow. Now, the rabbi was not in the habit of falling asleep when he studied, but he thought for a moment perhaps he was dreaming. Just then, a bat kol, a holy voice, emanated from the Aron HaKodesh, from the Holy Ark, saying, "Rabbi, your piety has been noted in the heavens. Because of it, you have been granted a single wish. One wish, no matter what it is. Speak quickly, for the moment is passing. The rabbi, ever a thoughtful man, sat and studied the situation. I'm poor, was his first thought. I have nothing. Life could certainly be easier. Perhaps I'll ask for riches. Do you think that's what he asked for? Of course not. The story would be over right there. Almost as soon as he thought that one thought, he dismissed it. Riches lead to greed, he said. And I have the Torah, the greatest treasure of all. Power, he thought next. For all of my studying, I'm unknown. I don't teach students. I'm not the headmaster of one of the great yeshivot. I give no pronouncements of law. But very quickly, he dismissed that thought too. Power, he thought, too often brings one to cruelty. Wisdom, then, he thought. What worthier a wish could there be than to request wisdom from the source of wisdom? But this too, he dismissed, checking that inclination. That would be an unworthy request, he said to himself. The Torah itself is the source of all wisdom, and I study it day in and day out. Having cataloged his thoughts and gone through all of his processes, finally, in the span of just seconds, really, he whispered to himself, no, I have nothing to wish for. I am content. God need give me nothing but the Torah that I already possess. That thought relaxed and really comforted the rabbi. He let out a big, deep breath that he had been holding in. He thought he had passed the divine test. He avoided temptation. But at that moment, he heard sobbing coming from the ark. Once again, the Bat Kol, the holy voice, spoke to him, saying, "You unfortunate man, you could have wished for peace. You could have wished for the end of human suffering. You could have asked for the salvation of the world, which you wait for in your prayers, but you thought only about yourself." The next morning, when the synagogue opened for prayer, the people entered as they did every morning. But when they entered, they found that the pious rabbi was gone. Days passed, weeks, months. Truth be told, the rabbi never returned to that synagogue. No one knows for sure what happened to him, but most say that he wanders the world, now dedicating himself to the repair of creation, working tirelessly to make up for the opportunity that he once squandered. One thing we know for sure, from that moment on, the sanctuary felt different, eerie. People began to avoid it. You could almost hear the sound of weeping if you listened carefully, late in the evenings and early in the mornings. And soon the place was abandoned altogether. That's when it began to be called the Weeping Synagogue. See, as we begin this new Jewish year of 5783, we commit ourselves to be better than that pious rabbi. As Rabbi Geffen pointed out to us in her sermon last week, our Torah scrolls are still dressed in their fancy whites, a reminder that we are very much still in this season of teshuvah, this season of repair and return. The proverbial gates don't close until next week, at least. for so many of us, and me included, as quickly as we finish our bagels and schmear after Ne'ilah on Yom Kippur, so many of us find ourselves regressing back to old habits. Some of us don't even wait until we leave the parking lot and get back onto Sheridan Road before those not-so-nice thoughts come back into our minds and those ugly words leave our lips. We find ourselves quickly back, lost in our own problems, our own work, our own routines, shut off from the needs of everybody else around us, forgetting the holy day's message about patience and compassion. That's why this week, as we dwell out in the sukkah, which is open on at least one side and open to the stars above, we are invited to look beyond our spaces, to do what that pious rabbi in our story was unable to do, to open our eyes and hear the struggles of others, to commit to doing whatever we can to make this world even better. Act quickly, for the moment is passing, said the Bat Kol. We mustn't squander our opportunity to engage in that holy work of repair and renewal, repairing ourselves and repairing the world all around us. Work we are called to do at this awesome season. The truth is, it's the work that we're called to do every single day of our lives. Shabbat Shalom.